exactly what I am.
Okay, we're on the air.
Hello and welcome to This Week in Atheism. This Week in Atheism is a panel discussion brought to you by the Center for Atheism. We discuss articles taken from The Focus, which is a weekly newsletter put out by the Center. You know, you can go on about being an atheist, you know. And,
Folks, let's try one more time.
okay.
Hopefully this stays on. Go ahead.
Hello and welcome to This Week in Atheism. This Week in Atheism is a panel discussion brought to you by the Center for Atheism, taken from articles, usually taken from articles from The Focus, which is the newsletter put out weekly by the Center for Atheism.
Top. Okay, we just try something. Okay, what I want you to do is start again right now. Go ahead.
Hello and welcome to This Week in Atheism, brought to you by the Center for Atheism. This Week in Atheism is a panel discussion based on articles taken from The Focus, which is the weekly newsletter put out by the Center for Atheism. If you would like to receive in your email a copy of the Focus, just use the information which should be scrolling on your screen. And that was unintentional alliteration. I'm your host, Dennis Horvitz. I'd like to introduce my panel for today. On my left is Alex, and on my right is Robert. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
We'll be discussing actually several articles kind of related to the same subject matter taken from The Focus. And this involves a humanist ad campaign which started out in Washington, D.C. and has gone nationally. By the way, as we're taping this, it is before the Christmas holidays, and as I say every year, those of you who are, like me, primarily concerned with making war on Christmas, by the time you see this, you should have been well underway doing that.
The war is
and
started.
I think that we can agree that the best way to make war on Christmas, of course, is to start wishing people happy holidays. So, every time you do, just consider yourself a warrior. In any case,
Happy Saturnalia is better.
happy Saturnalia Night Live. That's okay. By the way, I didn't mention that part of the dues you have to pay for being a panelist is to put up with my lame.
That's
well,
okay.
Alex knows, but you don't. You know.
Okay. The lame in the hole.
Yeah, the lame and the halt. I don't know. We've got a million of them, folks. We will be getting around to discussing what's actually on the subject at some point, but in any case, I have several articles, one from UPI, dealing with the American Humanist Association, and I have a problem with this particular article right off the top. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I will read the opening line. It says, the American Humanist Association hopes to take the Christ out of Christmas with ads featuring people in Santa hats preaching atheism. So here's what's happening. The American Humanist Association's message involves ads put on buses, which many groups, including New York City Atheists, have done. It's not all the same message, but the same theme. In this case, the American Humanist Association is putting ads on buses in the Washington, D.C. area, and the message is, no God, no problem. And Roy Speckart, who's actually been a guest on this show before, who is the head of American Humanist Association, he said that the ads are especially aimed at the nuns, N-O-N-E-S, which is a growing group of people in the United States who do not claim allegiance to any religion. It doesn't necessarily just mean atheists, it means a lot of people who are unaffiliated. He says that humanists have always understood that striving to make the world a better place is one of humanity's most important responsibilities. Religion does not have a monopoly on morality. Millions of people are good without believing in God. So, needless to say, several religious organizations have whined about this. And Matthew Staver of the Liberty Council and Dean of the Liberty University School of Law called the ad insensitive and mean, because we are just mean, horrible, vicious, evil atheists. So I'm going to refer to some other articles on the same subject, but right off the top, I don't know, when I was reading through these other articles, I didn't see anything about deliberately taking Christ out of Christmas. it
And
seems
that's
to
an
me.
editorial aside, and that happens a lot,
Yeah.
especially in smaller media organizations. They like to add as much as they can that kind of discredits or gives some kind of little kick to atheism because their readers are in majority
Right.
Christian or of faith, and so it kind of gives that buddy-buddy feeling of, okay, we're dealing with people who do believe in this, and they share my beliefs on this. And that's that. So there isn't really a lot of fair and balanced when it comes to the religious issues if you're getting your news from smaller venues.
Right, so they're basically pandering.
What I'm really surprised about is how quiet the Catholic Church has been, and the other, even though or the Protestant groups.
Yeah, it's like
It's quite striking how I think they even asked Cardinal Dolan when our campaign went up, the University Atheists, and he was very, that's
He was-
fine.
yeah.
Meanwhile, though, the Pope is saying that atheism is the cause of
Right, of everything,
everything
the
bad
end of
in
the
the
world.
world.
Right.
So they have bigger fish
along
to
with
fry than
condoms.
bus campaigns.
Along with condoms. Condoms
Yes.
and the loss of faith have done everything. And too much sex.
Right, well, the priest pedophiles were good Catholics.
Yeah.
They didn't use
Now,
condoms.
you see, I think what's changed is O'Connor would have railed against it. You see, that was still the angry triumphalist church where the full weight of the pedophile scandals hadn't yet sunk in,
Right.
and they were still, bang, 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 get them back. I think now they're a little in shock,
And
apparently.
and
It's the best I could read it.
the church could still claim to have moral authority.
In what sense? Yeah, oh, you mean after all of that? I mean, it's just a shambles.
Right.
Did you all see the...
Back in the day, I'm talking about.
The transcripts of Egan's up in Bridgewater?
I'm aware of them. I haven't.
Just staggering.
Yeah,
Just
I know. I
staggering.
know. He made some very insensitive
mean,
comments. And we can discuss
sorry.
the pedophilia. Some other. No, it's very easy.
Yeah.
It's very easy to get into that subject whenever there's some kind of.
But in general,
sanctimonious-
I mean, I'm surprised all the religious groups have been so quiet about the ad campaign. I don't know quite why.
well,
Yeah.
I don't think
lying
they've been
low
quiet.
or...
I don't think they've been quiet, especially at the beginning points of the ad campaigns, and actually over in Europe and the UK, they've been pretty vocal.
There was a little
about,
more outcrying in Europe, right?
Well, and they've been
In-
doing
in
this
England.
longer in
Yeah.
England, especially.
Yeah.
But it's usually not directed toward things like the smaller bus campaigns, because I think the church has such a stronghold in terms of national sentiment that they don't really feel the need to go picking at that. It's always brought in
England?
under the larger, well, in the
don't
United
know.
States is what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
And so when you don't have to
Maybe
go
they don't
picking at
feel
little things, you can
threatened.
just say the whole
Yeah.
blanket of atheism and use this as an example rather than go out and say, oh, these bus campaigns. It'll be brought up in a
Possibly,
larger
yeah.
argument,
Yeah.
and I think
Well,
they
yeah,
have done that.
possibly.
Yeah, and basically what this involves, as I said, it started out in Washington, D.C. It's now expanding to other cities. And I want to point out that, as Robert said before, New York City had its own bus signs. And I think, who was it?
New York City.
Just recently, the subway ads. Who's that?
Coalition of Reason.
Coalition group.
Yeah.
Yeah, but these are all individual groups taking it upon themselves to do this. However, the American Humanist Association has expanded this, and they're going national. So it's supposed to be the first ever national atheist advertising campaign. And according to this article from CNS News, it's the first ever national atheist advertising campaign, the first time the humanist group has taken its anti-religious holiday message outside the nation's capital. But the atheist group has claimed that it's designed to reach out to fellow atheists on what is normally a religious holiday. And as American Humanist Association spokesman Karen France mentioned that our campaign's purpose is to speak out to like-minded individuals, people who don't believe in God, and let them know they're not alone, that there's a community out there for them, which doesn't sound to me like necessarily anti-religious. It's just reaching out to like-minded people, because that's
There's
what it
not
says.
an explicitly anti-religious message to no
No.
God, no problem, question mark.
Right.
Right. Very,
So it's not like they're saying down with Christ and Christian.
Right, and don't believe in God.
Totally
But I think
correct.
I think adults understand this, but when you've been infantilized
Right.
by
Right. Or hell might be more fun.
right. Well, That would
We
be
weren't provocative.
that would be a good campaign. I'd like to see that. I'd get on board with that.
Think of whose heaven hell might be more fun.
In any way, Karen France says that we're not trying to convert anyone who does believe in God, nor are we anti-religious in the sense that we want to do away with religion. However, we do want to lessen the stranglehold religion has on public policy,
Right.
because such matters are best decided upon by reason, not by dogma.
Right.
And I was reading down this article, and at first I thought, it was a pro-Christian group. At first, I thought they were giving out kind of a refreshingly positive message, but it turns out that it wasn't. This particular group, a pro-Christian conservative group, mentioned that despite the American Humanist Association's anti-holiday message,
Holy day.
anti-holy day.
Okay,
Thank you. Despite their anti-holy day message, religious Americans shouldn't be intimidated. Well, and they have every right to continue to celebrate Christmas, and that they, meaning the Christians, have every right to continue to celebrate Christmas proudly, but that Christians shouldn't treat the atheist campaign with contempt. I think that's a little bit of projection, don't you think?
I'm glad that that's there. I think that's a nice message.
It sounds like it would be nice, except that just by the phrasing that religious Americans shouldn't be intimidated and have every right to continue to celebrate Christmas proudly. It deliberately plants the message that we as atheists are trying to deprive them of the right. It's that whining, victimization, infantile crap that these people
But at
always
least they
throw.
put the tiny kernel of hope, of some kind of understanding there.
Well, no. People of faith should view the humanist displays at this special, even holy time of year with compassion. Karen Hamrick, president of the Campaign for Working Families and spokesman for Gary Bauer's American Values. See, and to me this reinforces the idea that atheists and humanists are broken and need to be fixed. That, that we need their compassion, and they refer to it as the strident displays of antagonism to faith. Again, Christy Hamrick pointed out that the eternal truths of Christianity do not require validation by atheists, and Christians especially should feel empowered to celebrate the Christmas holiday openly and proudly. You're really being leaned on by the atheists. It's such. I think Aristotle used the word bullshit.
That's a very good translation of the word he uses in Greek.
Just the way. It's pretty slimy the way they frame the message as though we're like imposing or trying to take something away from them, and no, we're going to stand up for our rights. That kind of
Because
crap.
I think they do feel genuinely intimidated.
And
I think that the more that they tell themselves that, we're not going to be intimidated, we're going to pray for these people, we're going to make sure that everything is okay within our community, and we have this little stronghold, is because deep down they are intimidated, they are afraid that something's going to happen to cause them to lose some sort of faith or tradition. That's all they know. And it is, as you said before, this infantile kind of way of seeing the world, and when you want to yank the baby's bottle away, you're going to have
But you see, what's really even more threatening, we don't really care so much about whether they privately or even within their congregation celebrate Christmas. The point is the impact it's having on public policy and public space, that they are taking this out into our lives. And they're using it to justify war, for attacks on women, reproductive rights, gay rights. Down the line, anti-poverty. They don't want They don't want poor program. They don't want anything. So it's not just that they're sitting there saying mass and praying to themselves. It's what they're doing to the lives of us and the community.
But this is a way to kind of sugarcoat it down the throats of the believers that do. So they're saying, my rights are being trampled upon. There's something wrong with them that they're imposing on me, rather than even look at anything from a higher
of
perspective
course.
outside of themselves.
Right, it's the victimization game. That's basically is, and I'll just read the last line of this, the last sentence of this particular article. It says, again, this woman, I guess it's Christy Hamrick of the Campaign for Working Families, said, Christians are often told to hide their Merry Christmas greetings behind the blander Happy Holidays. But a Merry Christmas it truly is, even without the humanists joining our celebration. Well, again, when is the last time an atheist or anyone else told the Christians to hide their Merry Christmas behind, you know,
No,
behind
it's,
Happy
again,
Holidays?
it's never. And the reason they're so intimidated by Happy Holidays is because it implies that they are not the majority. It implies that, oh, there's another holiday besides mine.
Yeah.
Right,
and there are
right.
other people, and maybe lots of people, that
Right.
maybe celebrate that
Celebrating.
holiday.
Right.
And so you take the Christmas out of it, and it means, oh, I'm less of a person because of this.
Right,
And that's why
right.
they get so upset.
Well, and like you say, that in some ways, in a philosophical sense, they feel threatened, and probably rightly so. But basically, when stores started using the term Happy Holidays,
Right.
it was like
Because
grown-ups.
Jewish community, the Muslim
Grown-ups
community,
do
right.
this. You know,
Right.
it's to be inclusive, which I thought was the message of Christianity. You know,
Right.
Compassion, what
Compassion.
they say that
Right.
they should give to the atheists
right?
is being
right.
taken to other people, and
Well,
they can't handle it.
I mean, it is truly infantile when they play the you know, they play the victim game as is done by what's the guy's name? Bill Donahue of the Catholic League.
Oh, right.
He apparently, according to this article in the New York Times, also regarding the atheist bus campaign in Washington D.C., it says the head of the Catholic League linked secular humanists to figures like Hitler and the serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer.
Hitler.
Jeffrey
was probably
Dahmer
Catholic. Yeah.
drilling holes into people's heads, pouring things
Dahmer,
in.
right.
Now
That's
there's
just
the
like
Matthew.
atheism.
I mentioned earlier
Guamata.
Matthew.
He was pretty bad, was he? He was one of theirs.
You wouldn't want him for like.
I wouldn't want him as my uncle. No.
No, or an activities director on a cruise ship. You know.
A little bit of a killjoy.
Maybe to arrange the chairs on a Titanic or
Chairs,
something.
you know.
Yeah.
Start the barbecue at night with some flesh.
Okay. You really got to come out of your shell.
I know.
You know, just learn to express
Bring
yourself.
down some of the bodies and we'll roast them tonight on the ship.
Okay.
All right, that was a tangent.
Now, that's all right. We love tangents. We couldn't survive without
sorry.
them. You know, someone I mentioned earlier, Matthew D. Stavers, founder and chairman of the Liberty Council, a religious, conservative religious law firm, of course, said that the message is insensitive and mean.
Our message about Christmas?
The message, the atheist ad campaign,
Oh, okay.
no God, no
It's
problem.
insensitive. Okay.
But he also said that his organization had no legal action or other action planned in response to the advertisements. And I'm thinking he probably doesn't want a legal action because they don't need another embarrassing
I
court
was just
defeat.
going to say that. I
Yeah.
think they may be very leery of more court cases,
Yeah.
which, even though the Supreme Court is, pretty conservative,
Right.
it's always a danger that it may go wrong and then they lose power or a ruling against them. I don't know,
You know, in another show, we're going to be covering the evolution issue. But if you recall, in 2005, the Kitzmiller versus Dover campaign of the school board
the evolution.
in
creation,
Pennsylvania.
And the judge came down with that
Yeah,
ferocious ruling.
But
right?
the Discovery Institute, that bastion of clear thinking,
Right. The torch of science.
they
and
didn't want to get
enlightenment.
involved. They didn't want to
Oh,
get
really?
involved. No, they because they knew it was they knew it was a no winner.
Well, they had their only witness, Beale or something, the guy who wrote the Darwin's Black Box.
Oh, Behe.
Behe or
Behe. I never really know how to pronounce
Yeah, I
it.
didn't think Behe.
Yeah, he was basically.
He's it.
He was pummeled on the stand. He
Yeah, he was
buried.
trashed. He was
buried.
like
But
like Clarence Darrow and
Yeah,
And,
there's
the guy he pummeled.
this article in the New York Times mentions that after the signs went up last year in Washington, religious groups took out their own ads, of course. One featuring the famous Sistine Chapel image of God's finger reaching out to Adam, along with the words, "Why believe? Because I created you and I love you, for goodness sake. Signed, God." And Pennsylvania Friends in Christ placed an ad reading, "Believe in God, Christ is Christmas, for goodness sake."
Just as an aside, those ads that are addressed God are all over the Midwest.
Yeah.
And that's for years, since I was a little girl, you can just drive right down
Right.
a stretch of highway, and there will be billboards addressed from God to you, presumably, as you're
Sign
driving
God.
down, sign dash God. All sorts of random things. And then there's some billboards that just say God or Jesus. Huge letters, neon background. And this has been years and years and years. So, I mean, us atheists putting up a
Yeah.
few signs on buses is not anything
And
compared to what they do.
we don't realize how lucky we are in the big cities here in the north,
Yes,
etc.
yes.
But when I was in Chapel Hill in graduate school, I mean, it is ubiquitous, the preaching.
Yeah.
I mean, constant, nonstop. Now, people were answering back, other, grad students, they were answering, like about shellfish and stuff when he was railing against sin. And they said, well, are you for stoning women who have committed adultery? There wouldn't be many left on campus,
Well, it's interesting how when they're backed up against the wall,
They have no answer. They have no idea.
about contradictions in the Bible or
Right.
what they say. Well, God works in mysterious ways, and yet they know
Right.
exactly what's on God's mind.
Right.
But
right.
it's interesting
Well,
how
they're taking that on faith too.
Yeah.
So
Right.
it's not only do they know what's on his mind, but they have faith that that's on his mind, and even
Right.
if they're wrong,
Right.
their faith in and of itself is a good thing and will
Right.
sustain
Right.
them.
And usually they're
regardless.
so delusional you can't even argue with them because they just
no, we
rant.
can't. But I would think that as atheists, we don't have a problem with their feeling the need to be defensive and run their little counter ads and all that stuff. That's absolutely fine. And this article mentions one or two other signage deals. There was one, I think, the Freedom from Religion Foundation created a furor last year with a sign that read in part, "Religion is but myth and superstition that hardens hearts and enslaves minds." Its location was next to a nativity scene at the Capitol in Olympia, and I guess this must be in Nevada. What is the capital of Nevada? Is that
Oh, it's Vegas. Vegas or Reno, I forget now.
Reno, I think Reno.
right?
I think. Somebody wrote that on a nativity?
I don't know. No, somebody had I guess the Freedom from Religion Foundation last year put up a sign that said, "Religion is but myth and superstition that hardens hearts and enslaves minds."
Its location was
And
next to a nativity scene.
it says at the Capitol in Olympia.
Or maybe Olympia is the capital of...
Washington, Oregon. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Well, the Freedom from Religion Foundation's actually, I believe, from Wisconsin,
Right.
from Madison. So they do actions all around the country.
Right, right.
So it could very well be that.
Well, the reason I call attention to this is because I've left a note for myself. I'm just wondering if I'm assuming that the signs were on public property. I don't know.
Well, it could have been a church, the nativity. I mean, I don't know.
I mean, if
Who knows?
the thing is, if it
Yeah.
had, if
The legality.
if the nativity scene had been in a church, then they wouldn't have had a problem with it. I have one or two other. I don't know what I did.
And
with
people
it.
don't even realize that a nativity scene was invented by Francis of Assisi. It didn't exist before that. It was created by St. Francis 2 years or so before he died. He made the first creche in Assisi. And that's he died around 1126.
Well,
so
we're
for
still
over
fighting
1,000
about-
years, we didn't have the creche.
Yeah, we're still fighting about 50 years ago they added one nation under God and the Pledge of Allegiance,
Right,
and the
right.
people in this country think that the founding fathers brought
right.
that down from the mountain on
And
a
the pledge
stool,
itself
so-
is from 1890 or something, right?
I mean,
And it was never official. It was private. Yeah.
And it was written by a minister who didn't put under God into it.
Yeah, right.
And I think
Was he even a minister?
He was a minister.
Was he a minister?
And he was a
Okay.
socialist
did
too, I
look it up.
think.
I think he was. I looked it up once. So
I did too, and I
right.
Well,
think-
and Jesus was kind of there's a great song that's a long-haired radical socialist Jew about
Yeah.
Jesus and what Jesus
Who
really
wrote-
is.
who wrote it?
It's some
Oh.
folk singer. I
Okay.
just remember hearing this back in the day.
Long-haired radical socialist.
Socialist Jew, 'cause that's what
I was
Jesus
at least two of those at one time. I don't know.
How many are you now? Are you like the Trinity? 3 in 1? The incarnation of the Trinity right next to us?
Yeah, that would, yeah, that's the first thing. People meet me for the first
You haven't
time.
been called that before, right?
Yeah, that's the first thing that people think of when I
They
when
see of
meet
you
me
as
for
the Trinity.
The Trinity. Here comes the Trinity. You know, absolutely.
That was another thing that was fought over for centuries before they even nailed down the Trinity. I mean, for 400 or 500 years, they were fighting, nailed it down, so to speak.
So to speak,
I didn't
yeah.
even mean that as a pun. They
I know
nailed
you
him
did.
down.
I know you didn't. That's why I
They
call it
nailed
that.
him down, and then it took 400 years to nail him down again.
Wow. To nail down the principles.
The principle, so to speak.
Okay, I have another article dealing with this, but it's in such small print that I can't read it. So, and you know,
That must be, God did that on purpose. He made that small type.
That must be it. But
Your computer is a virus from God.
So the, are you good without God? ? And they've all, if you notice, they all frame these as questions. None of these are direct statements. I mean, are you
Right,
good
they
without
can't tell you.
God? ? Millions are, and that's it. There's no like, there is no God. There is no.
That's right.
Don't go
This is the
against. It's
atheist
all
group, right,
questions.
right.
Yeah.
here's why I think I probably printed this out is because a lot of times the comments in these articles are gems, and here's one from. By the way, I'll just mention that the article itself is from
The Baltimore Sun.
Baltimore Sun, right? Baltimore, Maryland, as opposed to Baltimore, Ohio. I don't know if there's a Baltimore, Ohio. One comment. The true sign that you are an evolved human being is when you have achieved high ethical standards without having some make-believe deity standing behind you with the eternal retribution hammer hanging over your head. This ability may in and of itself become the demarcation point at which humanity enters a new phase of development that may usher in a whole new species, relegating most of those now in existence as being classified as proto-human. We're running out of time. I just want to check and see if well, there's a couple of the usual things that are just kind of statements that are whining about how Christians are being bombarded with non-religious messages and stuff like that. But we kind of, when you've been at this for a while, you kind of expect the whining and the victimization thing. Most atheists tend to be portrayed by a lot of religious people and fundamentalists as being arrogant and condescending, and that's really not true, except in our case. And rightfully so. In any case, we have come to the end of another edition of This Week in Atheism. I want to thank somebody out there is probably saying that. Yeah. I want to thank Alex and Robert for joining me. Thank you for listening, for watching. And please join us again next week. I have been your host, Dennis Horvitz. Bye-bye.